We got very close to getting married in 1964. He said, "You know, I'm not going to marry an actress." So I didn't want him to ask me to marry him because I didn't want to say no to Frank Sinatra.
Hollywood stars often make their personal lives more dramatic than the movies they appear in. Angie's love life is one of the stories that should become a best-selling film. She got married and had affairs with quite some people, but her love life was not as dramatic as the life of the one she considered to be the love of her life. A question arises: who is this person who captured the heart of one of the finest Hollywood actresses? This is about to get juicy. So, hop on, and let's explore the story of Angie and the love of her life, from humble beginnings to Hollywood. Angie Dickinson, whose original name is Angeline Brown, was born on the 30th of September 1931 in the little town of Coulomb in North Dakota. She had two sisters and grew up with her dad, who worked as a newspaper editor. When she was about 10 years old, her family moved to sunny California. Right there, she attended Glendale College and later Immaculate Heart College. And after college, she started her career as a secretary. But her life took a huge turn when she won a beauty pageant. This opened a new world to her and led to an appearance on the Colgate Comedy Hour, and sparked her desire to go deeply into acting. When she finished as the runner-up in a local Miss America preliminary, Angie caught the eye of a casting agent, which gave her a role as one of 6 showgirls on The Jimmy Durante Show. This exposure opened new doors, and a television producer encouraged her to step into the world of acting. Enthusiastic and eager to learn, she honed her craft. And not too long after that, the National Broadcasting Corporation reached out to offer her guest spots on various variety shows, including the Colgate Comedy Hour. It was during this time that she met Frank Sinatra, who would become a lifelong friend. In 1954, Angie made her television acting debut in an episode of a series named Death Valley Days. This was the beginning of an impressive array of a lot of roles in productions. In 1956, she made her mark with a guest appearance in an episode of The Life and Legend of Wyatt Earp. The following year, she took on a small role in Richard Boone's Have Gun, Will Travel. 2 years later, she got the part of Laura Meadows in one of the Colt 45 episode as well as Wade Preston. That same year, she showcased her talent as Mrs. Fargo, who is a defendant in a series named Perry Mason. She also went ahead to create some unforgettable characters in shows like Mike Hammer, Wagon Train, and Men into Space. In 1965, she got a recurring role as Carol Treadman on NBC's Dr. Kildare. She also portrayed a conspirator in a gripping 1964 episode of The Fugitive, featuring stars like David Jensen and Robert Duvall. In addition, Angie starred in 2 episodes of The Alfred Hitchcock Hour with James Mason on the 18th of October, 1962, and Thanatos Palace Hotel with Stephen Hill on the 31st of January, 1965. She officially kicked off her film career with a small, uncredited role in Lucky Me, which was released in 1954 and featured Doris Day. Soon enough, she followed up with appearances in The Return of Jack Slade, released in 1955, Man with the Gun, and Hidden Guns, released in 1956. Instead of embracing the incredible platinum blonde look, which was associated with top-tier icons like Marilyn Monroe and Jane Mansfield, something she believed would restrict her acting opportunities, Angie initially permitted studios to lighten her naturally brunette hair to a honey blonde shade. Initially in her career, she predominantly appeared in B-movies and westerns, such as Shootout at Medicine Bend, where she starred along with Randolph Scott and James Garner. In the crime drama titled Cry Terror, she took on a supporting role as a femme fatale, acting opposite James Mason and Rod Steiger. Angie's breakout moment on the screen came 1 year later, in Howard Hawks's Rio Bravo, where she acted as a flirtatious gambler named Feathers. In this film, she found herself drawn to the town sheriff, played by none other than her childhood idol, John Wayne. The movie also featured stars like Dean Martin, Walter Brennan, and Ricky Nelson. However, when Howard unexpectedly sold her personal contract to a major studio without informing her, and like normal people, it left Angie feeling frustrated. Despite that setback, she quickly established herself as one of the leading ladies of the decade, starting with her role in The Bramble Bush, alongside Richard Burton. She also took on a part in Ocean's 11, sharing the screen with close friends like Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. After this huge breakthrough, Angie took on a variety of roles, including a political thriller titled A Fever in the Blood, and a melodrama set in the Belgian Congo titled The Sins of Rachel Cade, where she played a missionary nurse struggling with temptation. She also portrayed a scheming woman in Rome Adventure, which was set and filmed in Italy, and starred as the title character in John Negulesco's Jessica, alongside Maurice Chevalier. In this Sicilian-set film, she played a young midwife who faced resentment from the town's married women. In 1963, Angie shared the screen with another friend named Gregory Peck in the dark comedy titled Captain Newman, M.D., where she played a military nurse. Also, her role in The Killers marked another important moment in her career. It was originally intended as the first movie that was made for television, and it was released in theaters instead due to its violent content and entertainment appeal. Angie featured as a femme fatale opposite future U.S. President Ronald Reagan, who was taking on his final role in this film. Directed by Don Siegel, one of her films that stood out from this era is widely regarded as John Borman's Point Blank, which is a cult classic crime drama where she stars with Lee Marvin. In the late 1960s, she continued embracing her Western roots, starring in films like The Last Challenge alongside Glenn Ford, Young Billy Young with Robert Mitchum, and Sam Whiskey featuring Burt Reynolds. In 1971, she took another turn by playing a lustful substitute high school teacher in the dark comedy titled Pretty Maids All in a Row. It was directed by Roger Vadim and written by Gene Roddenberry, and the film featured stars like Rock Hudson and Telly Savalas. Despite its intriguing initial success, the movie faced harsh criticism and flopped at the box office. In that same year, she played the role of the ambitious wife of Robert Culp in the television movie titled See the Man Run, and starred alongside Leslie Nielsen in The Resurrection of Zachary Wheeler. The following year, she took on a role in the French film The Outside Man, shot in Los Angeles, where she portrayed the stunning but corrupt wife of a mobster, alongside Jean-Louis Trintignant, and directed by Jacques Deray. 2 years later, she teamed up with Roy Thinnes in the supernatural thriller titled The Norliss Tapes, a TV movie produced and directed by Dan Curtis that later developed a modest cult following. One of her most iconic and risque roles came next, playing the eye-catching widow Wilma McClatchy in the Great Depression-themed film Big Bad Mama and William Shatner and Tom Skerritt. In her 40s at the time, she bared it all in several scenes, which not only made people interested in the film, but also gained her a new generation of male fans. Also, in 1966, Angie became more popular by gracing the cover of Esquire, where she posed in nothing but a sweater and a pair of pantyhose. The image became so iconic that, during the magazine's 70th anniversary in 2003, Britney Spears recreated that famous pose for the cover. Fast forward to 1993. After decades of excellent acting, she appeared in the ABC miniseries titled Wild Palms, produced by Oliver Stone, playing the sadistic militant sister of Senator Tony Kreutzer, portrayed by Robert Loggia. That same year, she took on the role of a ruthless spa owner in Gus Van Sant's Even Cowgirls Get the Blues, sharing the stage with Uma Thurman. In November, she made headlines again when she walked off the set of a proposed This Is Your Life special about her, refusing to participate in the show. In 1995, she landed a role as the prospective mother-in-law of Greg Kinnear in Sabrina, a romantic comedy directed by Sidney Pollack and starring Harrison Ford. She also appeared as Burt Reynolds' wife in the thriller The Maddening, and played the mother of Rick Aiello and Robert Zucchini in the National Lampoon comedy The Don's Analyst. After 4 years, she rekindled an old flame with Rip Torn in an episode of HBO's The Larry Sanders Show titled Artie and Angie and Hank and Hercules. She also showcased her professional skills in Pay It Forward, released in 2000, where she portrayed an alcoholic homeless mother to Helen Hunt's character. In that same year, she took on the role of Gwyneth Paltrow's grandmother in the drama Duets, and played the mother of Arliss Howard's character in Big Bad Love, co-starring with Deborah Winger. Having appeared in the original Ocean's 11 in 1960, as well as her good friends Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, Angie made a nostalgic cameo in the 2001 remake, which featured George Clooney and Brad Pitt after 4 decades. An avid enthusiast of poker, she took part in the second season of Bravo's Celebrity Poker Showdown in the summer of 2004. When she introduced herself, the host named Dave Foley gave a hilarious remark. Sometimes, when we say celebrity, we actually mean it. That same year, Angie also appeared in the comedy titled Elvis Has Left the Building, playing an ex-mechanic and the mother of Kim Basinger's character. Giving honor to her roots, she received the Rough Rider Award from the state of North Dakota, as well as many juicy awards for making a huge impact in the Hollywood industry. In 2009, she starred in the Hallmark Channel drama Mending Fences, along with a star named Laura Layton, marking her last acting credit to date. She was one of the most skillful actresses, starring in very interesting and tasky movies. But little did people know that she had to deal with more drama at home. Let's explore the personal life of Angie. Her interesting personal life. Angie's personal life is not as dramatic as her colleagues in Hollywood. The first man she got married to was Angie Dickinson, a footballer she met in college, who later transitioned into the business of electronics. They were married from 1952 until 1960, although they separated in 1956. During her marriage, she formed a close friendship with John Kenneth Galbraith and his wife, Catherine. Her frequent visits with them, especially while John was serving as the U.S. ambassador to India, are well documented in his memoirs titled Ambassador's Journal and A Life in Our Times. After their divorce, unlike other people, Angie chose to keep her married name. 5 years after her divorce, she got married to a composer named Burt Bacharach. Their marriage lasted for 16 years, although they experienced a period of separation during which they dated other people. On the 12th of July, 1966, Angie gave birth to their daughter, Nikki, who suffered from autism and sadly took her life on the 4th of January, 2007. Burt also joined his daughter in the world of the unknown in 2023. In the 1980s, Angie had another romantic relationship with a musician named Billy Vera, and even appeared in the music video for his single, I Can Take Care of Myself. Throughout the 1990s, she dated the legendary radio and television host Larry King. In 2023, Angie revealed that she had a 20-year on-and-off affair with Frank Sinatra, describing him as the love of her life and one of the most charismatic men that ever was. In an interview with NPR in 2006, they identified her as a Democrat and shared her political history, stating that she campaigned for John F. Kennedy during his presidential run in 1960 and supported Lyndon B. Johnson in 1964. As a main testament to the undeniable impact she has made, there's even a street named after her in San Antonio, Texas. Her personal life was filled with a little drama here and there. But this is about to get hotter. We're about exploring the love life of Angie and Frank, the actual love of her life. Let's explore it quickly, because there is a lot to talk about. The love story of Angie and Frank Sinatra. Angie and Frank had an on and off relationship for many years, with Angie describing him as the love of her life. They had a really deep connection, but she had her reservations about making things official, even though they talked about marriage. It all started in 1953, when they both appeared on the Colgate Comedy Hour. According to the New York Post, at the 2015 TCM Film Festival, Angie recalled that backstage, Frank asked her if she was attached. When she replied that she was, he cheekily inquired if he should take her number. At that time, she was still married to her first husband, while Frank was in his second marriage with Ava Gardner. However, she went ahead and gave him her number anyway. They starred together in the 1960 film Ocean's 11, where she played his character, Danny Ocean's wife, Beatrice. That same year, she finalized her divorce from her first husband. In 2016, she revealed on Studio 10 that Frank was the most important man in her life, saying that they had an on and off romance for many years. In a recent interview with Fox News, she also mentioned that they were so in love that they even considered marrying in 1965. She said, "We actually talked about it. We were so comfortable with each other that it wasn't really necessary. But it did come up a couple of times. I wasn't keen on it. I would not have wanted to take that challenge on." Angie talked about the challenge of marrying Frank because of his lifestyle, which often had him out late into the night. In a recent interview with Entertainment Weekly, she states, "We just liked each other. I was crazy about him. He was fabulous. He was absolutely the love of my life. But I wouldn't have wanted to be married to him. He went to bed at 6 a.m. She also shared that he had his own reservations about getting married to her, stating, "He actually did say, 'You know, I'm not going to marry a movie star.'" And then he went on to marry Mia Farrow. He married Mia in 1966, but he had also been married to another actress, Ava Gardner, from 1951 to 1957. Angie Dickinson shared with CBS Sunday Morning in 2019, he said, "You know, I'm not going to marry an actress." And I replied, "Well, I don't blame you. I wouldn't wish that on anybody." She went on to clarify, "And I actually didn't want to marry him. I didn't want him to ask, because I didn't want to have to say no to Frank Sinatra." Despite their romantic history, they still remained lifelong friends until his passing in 1998. Angie still continues to express her enduring affection for Frank, and during an interview with Fox News, she said, "Well, he's the love of my life. I just smile because it feels good to think about him. He was an extraordinary talent, to say the least. When you consider his ability to act and sing, he didn't always take on challenges, but I believe he could have sung anything." Also talking about his character, she said, "He was also an extraordinary man. He was difficult, wonderful, brave, and foolish." Frank's personal life. Unlike Angie, Frank had a rich list of relationships throughout his life, as he got married 4 times and engaged in at least 6 other recorded romances. He had 3 confirmed children, alongside a few whose paternity remains uncertain. Sinatra, he met his first wife, Nancy Barbato, during the summer of 1934, and they tied the knot on the 4th of February 1939 in her hometown of Jersey City, New Jersey. Their first child, Nancy Sinatra, was born on the 8th of June 1940, followed by their son Francis Wayne Sinatra, known as Frank Sinatra Jr., on the 10th of January 1944. After moving to Hollywood, Frank's extramarital affairs began to come out beginning with Marilyn Maxwell. These infidelities, which became public knowledge, caused obvious distress for Nancy, who started thinking about ending their marriage. In 1946, she went through an abortion after she became pregnant. Their third child, Christina Sinatra, affectionately known as Tina, was born on the 20th of June, 1948. The couple officially came out to announce their separation on Valentine's Day in 1940, amid Frank's public affair with Ava Gardner, which added to his already crumbling marriage. Initially seeking a legal separation, Frank and Nancy decided to file for divorce, which was finalized on the 29th of October, 1941. Then, his relationship with Ava deepened, leading to his second marriage. Frank's continued efforts to stay connected with Nancy, even after their split, were not known. He often visited, made late-night phone calls, and joined family dinners during special occasions like birthdays and holidays. Throughout the many years after they split, my grandfather came to visit whenever his crazy life would allow it, said A.J. Lambert, Nancy's granddaughter, in a 2015 piece for the media. He continued, "I remember times when she would be on the phone with her ex-husband, and before I knew it, eggplant was coming out of the freezer so she could make him sandwiches when he showed up." No one wanted to talk about their past, but Nancy's enduring affection for Frank was obvious to those close to them. According to AJ, "I know he never stopped loving her, and I know she never stopped loving him." Nancy passed away in 2018 at the ripe age of 101, having never remarried and outliving both her ex-husband and their son, Frank Jr., who died in 2016. A writer and biographer named Kitty Kelly reveals that Frank had initially seen pictures of Ava in a magazine and said that he would marry her someday. However, Ruth Rosenthal, a friend of Ava, noted that Ava initially found Frank conceited, arrogant, and overpowering, which was her first impression of him when they first met at MGM. Despite this, their shared vices, including the use of illicit substances, hard drinking, using curse words, and passionate tempers, soon became what brought them together. After Frank confessed to his affair with Ava, Nancy locked him out of their home and hired a lawyer. Shortly after the whole dramatic divorce, he obtained a marriage license in Pennsylvania and got married to Ava in a small ceremony on the 7th of November, 1951. Their marriage was a disaster, marked by a lot of altercations and public fights, as well as an abortion in November 1952. Eventually, the couple formally announced their separation on the 29th of October, 1953, barely 2 years after their marriage. Ava then filed for divorce in June 1954, while she was dating matador Luis Miguel Dominguin, but the proceedings weren't finalized until July 1957. Frank believed that Peter Lawford, who had previously dated Ava, was to blame for their split, and it took him 6 years to forgive him. After the separation, Frank was inconsolable, with reports indicating that on the 18th of November, 1953, Jimmy Van Heusen found him in the elevator of his 57th Street apartment with his wrists slashed. Despite their divorce, Frank remained deeply attached to Ava, and they remained good friends for life. He even managed her business affairs well after their split, continuing to handle her finances as late as 1976. When her health declined in later years, Frank generously contributed $50,000 toward her medical bills. Frank moved on to marry another actress named Mia Farrow on the 19th of July, 1966, when she was just 21 and he was 50. At that time, he was experiencing a resurgence in popularity, as his hit song Strangers in the Night had quickly climbed back to the top of the Billboard charts just 17 days later. The couple met while filming Von Ryan's Express. Mia agreed to star in Frank's 1968 film titled The Detective. But when her schedule for Rosemary's Baby overlapped, she had to back out. Frank felt betrayed and served her divorce papers in front of the cast and crew. They then finalized their divorce in Mexico in August 1968. In a November 2013 interview with the media, Mia stated that she and Frank never really split up, and he even hinted at the possibility that her son Ronan might be Frank's. On the 11th of July 1976, Frank married Barbara Marx, who had previously been married to Zeppo Marx, who was the straight man in the Marx Brothers Act. Barbara converted to Catholicism for the marriage and remained with Frank until his death. However, her relationship with his children was often seen as not so good. Nancy publicly stated that Barbara had failed to reach out to Frank's children even as he got close to the end of his life. As a result, they missed the chance to be by their father's bedside before he passed away. In 2021, Frank's grave marker got vandalized by an unknown individual who attempted to chisel away the word husband. The damaged marker was later replaced with a new one that reads, "Sleep warm, Papa," which echoed the sentiment that his daughter Tina had buried him. Throughout his life, Frank was known for having so many extramarital affairs. His first main relationship in Hollywood was with blonde starlet Alora Gooding in October 1940, described as his first big love away from home, according to Nick Savano. This was followed by little flings with Rita Merritt, a 16-year-old daughter of an oil baron, as well as Mary Lou Watts, a wealthy socialite. Gossip publications frequently reported on his dalliances with notable names like Lana Turner and Marilyn Maxwell. Frank's on-and-off romance with Angie Dickinson went on for about 10 years, from around 1954 to 1964. Angie stated in 1999 that they had an incredible like for each other and enjoyed a very comfortable relationship, noting that if their affair had been more passionate, it might not have endured as long. The two remained friends until his passing. Frank's personal life was a whole lot of drama. However, there is more to his affairs beyond the stage and performance. He had a darker side, and maybe that is one of the reasons Angie's relationship with him didn't work. Let's get into full details about the other dark side of Frank. The other dark side of Frank. Frank's rise from the streets of Hoboken to the juicy avenues of Hollywood in the 1940s is a story of immense talent that meets a very important opportunity. He came out as a crooner for the Harry James and Tommy Dorsey orchestras and quickly became the heartthrob of the Bobby Soxers, captivating the nation with his charming voice. By the mid-1940s, Frank had continued to prove that he was a top solo artist, with hits like I'll Never Smile Again and New York, New York, which propelled his fame. However, his early relationship with hard drinks and illicit substances was a result of the celebratory atmosphere of his newfound success. The entertainment industry of that era was dipped in a culture where drinking was more like a general rule, especially among icons of the Rat Pack. He and his peers were often seen with drinks in hand. Sometimes they took pictures with those drinks, which was a result of the carefree spirit of the swing era. The bottle became a constant companion for Sinatra, who was known for his love of Jack Daniels. As his biographer Robin Swan noted, from the mid-40s on, he was really seriously abusing the booze, and, even in his later life, he was drinking a bottle of Jack Daniels a day. This drinking culture often caused deeper issues, and for Frank, his drinking started taking a toll on him. Instances of late-night brawls and canceled performances started tarnishing his reputation as a professional. But in these formative years, his toxic relationship with drinks seemed to amplify his legend, even as it hinted at the struggles ahead. The 1950s and 60s marked the peak of Frank's career, extending his influence beyond music into film and television. Winning an Academy Award for his role in From Here to Eternity, solidified his reputation as both a serious actor and a singer. But this period of triumph also coincided with a deepening dependency on prescription substances, a less famous aspect of his life that became increasingly important behind the scenes. As the pressures of stardom came up and intensified, Frank, like many of his contemporaries, began to rely on prescription medications to deal with the demands of his tight schedule. Sleeping pills and sedatives provided the rest he needed in an industry characterized by long nights and very early mornings, while amphetamines helped to sustain the relentless energy which was required for performances and public appearances. The dark side of this reliance on illicit substances soon emerged, with reports about his serious mood swings, reclusiveness, and volatile behavior. He sincerely acknowledged his struggles one time, stating, "Being an 18-carat manic depressive and having lived a life of violent emotional contradictions, I have an over-acute capacity for sadness as well as elation." The impact of Frank's substance use started taking a significant toll on both his professional life and personal relationships. His struggles with prescriptions and illicit substance addiction became an open secret, which was marked by notable incidents that highlighted the seriousness of his condition. Professionally, canceled concerts and studio sessions became increasingly common as Frank's substance use affected his ability to perform. A particular incident occurred while recording the Strangers in the Night album, where his apparent inebriation led to a tense confrontation with producer Jimmy Bowen. His work on film sets was similarly compromised. His role in The Man with the Golden Arm, where he portrayed a drummer grappling with addiction, was seen by some as life-imitating art. Throughout the 1960s, as his fame increased alongside his professional commitments, Sinatra's reliance on substances grew more pronounced. While there were moments of clarity and attempts at sobriety, which were often driven by the influence of relationships or the sharp realization of his declining health, the cycle of addiction proved very challenging to escape. Despite brief periods of recovery, Frank frequently experienced relapses, underscoring the persistent hold of his struggles. What do you think about Angie Dickinson and who she confesses is the love of her life? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. To enjoy more exciting videos, click play on the video on your screen. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when a new video drops.